When it comes to the ideals of mentorship and guiding students to bring the best out of them, Vipin Pavithran is an epitome of this very idea. Widely known as a creative genius behind the two prominent computer science clubs, amFOSS and BIOS, at Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, Amritapuri, he strongly believes in the value of right guidance at the right time. This albeit simple but powerful belief has created a huge impact on students all the way from them winning the Sun Code of Freedom back in 2008 to getting them selected many times for the prestigious Google Summer of Code program. I can definitively say that after every conversation with Vipin sir, I always leave feeling a bit wiser. Pavitra and I had a great time talking to Vipin sir about the club's history. We felt absolutely enlightened, and I hope you do too. Welcome to the first episode of the amFOSS podcast. Welcome, Vipin sir, to the amFOSS podcast. So, how are you doing? How is the pandemic treating you?
Thank you, Anushka, for this podcast. I'm doing well. I hope all of you are also doing well. Yesterday, I just got my, booster shot, and hopefully, I can avoid the next wave that is coming now. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think I should also get my booster shot. What about you, Pavitra? Have you gotten your booster shot yet?
No, I haven't gotten my booster shot yet.
I hope Omicron treats us well. Where are you currently right now? In Kerala? Are you?
Currently, I'm in Kochi.
Mhm.
Just returned from Delhi. Had gone for a visit over there to meet the CBSE chairman, and currently
Okay.
in Kochi.
Great, great. So, I am you're known to a lot of people for being the founder of amFOSS. So, could you tell us how it actually started? Like, what was the whole story behind how amFOSS came about?
That's a long story. I also don't know where to get started. So I moved into the academia in 2006. I used to work in the industry for about 10 years. And one of the things that I noticed while I'm in the industry is that, and even I remember when I finished my studies, we are not really prepared for the industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether the academia completely prepares you for the industry. And when I came back, I had an opportunity to interact with students, and I was wondering what is the best way to help students prepare for the industry. And one day, a student Abhilash, he approached me and told me that he came across this contest called the Great Minds Challenge by IBM, and
Yeah.
it involved building some applications using IBM's tools. And since I worked in the industry, I was very familiar with all of them, and the Java 2 Enterprise Edition. I had developed several applications using that, so I was pretty confident. And he said that okay, he's going to find some other team, he's going to form a team, and he wanted me to mentor them. So that's how it started. During 2006, our campus, Amritapuri campus, was not famous for winning any technical competitions, and therefore, the students were just in it for having some fun and learning. And for me, I was confident that they're going to win it. I was extremely confident that they're going to win it because I can navigate their way around that.
Yeah.
So they started with this competition, and we used to meet regularly, and they put in a lot of effort for it, and all their efforts paid off finally, and they were shortlisted for the finals. And even then, they were not confident whether they're going to reach anywhere on the top. But ultimately, they ended up in top five, and that actually help the junior students to also feel more confident. Oh, if our seniors can do it, at such a big national level, maybe we can also do it. That really
Mm-hmm.
helped a lot of students to gain confidence. One day I went and talked to our chancellor, Mata Amritanandamai, and she's a great humanitarian leader as well, and she meets a lot of people. I went to ask her what is the best way I can help students. How do I bring out their talent? And she told me make them compete in a healthy manner. If you're able to make them compete, it will help them to develop their skills. So that's what made me to search for these competitions. Said, let me
Yes.
look at some of the competitions that are there out there, and get some students to take part. At that time also, I had no idea about a club or anything like that. It was just about finding some competitions and getting some interested students, and making them compete in that. So I came across this competition called Sun Microsystems Code for Freedom, and it was about contributing to open source. Though I have developed a lot of applications, this open source concept was also new to me. I was not, I mean, I've never heard of it before, even though I worked in the industry for a long time. And so it was very interesting. I found it to be really interesting, the perfect way to get students to learn industry skills, because open source has several of the best developers across the world writing code, and it
Right.
allows for
Yes.
students also to go through this code, and thereby you learn. Since you are also a part of the club, you would have experienced that yourself, right? Not only to read large code base, to contribute to it, but also to learn about things like version control system, and communicating via email in a professional manner. So many other skills that you need in the industry, which you may not normally get to learn within your classrooms. So for me, that was
Mm-hmm.
like a perfect opportunity for helping students to learn about these industry skills that are needed. So anyway, there was this student Avinash Joshi who signed up for the Sun Microsystems Code for Freedom, and he spent a lot of. He was in his second year at that time. He has not even taken an course on operating systems. So
Oh, okay.
one of the products that the students needed to contribute was in Open Sun Solaris, which is an open source operating system by Sun Microsystems. So he had not even taken a course in operating systems that time, but he was pretty confident, and we also put in a lot of effort together, and some of the Sun engineers also helped, and finally he made his first contribution, and then he also helped a lot of other students also to contribute, and in the end we became the number one university in India in 2007. That was the first time we are winning a national contest from our campus, and again
Wow.
that helped the students to develop more confidence. Okay, we can also do things like that and dream bigger, because okay, you always look forward to your seniors. Your seniors have done all these things, and they have done they have traveled abroad or whatever. It gives the juniors also a lot of confidence that okay, we are also from the same institute and the same club, we can also do it. And so slowly, with the help of Sun Microsystems, which was acquired by Oracle later, we had a Sun Club. The Sun Microsystems helped to form a club in our university called the Sun Club, and that was the beginning of the FOSS Club actually. And then we came to know about more such organizations that are into open source, and slowly the students started contributing to other organizations. And I think in 2010, um, we had our first Google Summer of Code. So we came to know about this program. There was this student Varun who is currently
Yes.
working in Google actually in the Google security team. He got into this Google Summer of Code, into the KDE organization, and that actually helped several other students also to focus on Google Summer of Code, and thereby why do we focus on Google Summer of Code? Why do I ask students to do that? The reason is that everybody likes to work under some deadline. If you don't have a deadline, then there is no meaning. You just continue to work without deadline. So here you have a deadline, and then there is a defined goal. There is this particular contribution that you're supposed to make, and
Mm-hmm.
the best thing is there is a reward also at the end of it. So this is
Yes.
a very nice combination. You have a deadline, and you have a very fixed thing that you're supposed to work on, and you have guidance also, and you have guidance, and there is this monitoring in place where you're supposed to send weekly status updates to your mentor, and they track your progress, and in between you have different milestones. So it's a perfect setting for students to do something and get a reward, as well as develop their skills. I found that to be really amazing thing for students to start learning, and that's how we started getting students prepared for it, as a way of getting skills that will help them to be ready in the industry. So these were like, how the FOSS club actually started. It evolved from a competition, and then slowly it started into a club, and then we started focusing on helping students developing skills through these open source contributions.
Right. That's interesting. I think a lot of people would like to know how actually amFOSS started, because right now, Pavitra and I think a lot of people from our batch are benefiting from that vision that you had for amFOSS. So
Yeah,
that's
it's
great to
quite
know.
amazing to see how it grew from Sun Club to amFOSS as we know it today.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
exactly.
interesting. I mean, when I started it, I didn't think that it's going to go on for this long. First of all, that that itself
Uh,
is it,
15
it has
years.
not started like okay, we're going to make it into a big club and several students are going to come. So it slowly evolved. It's not like in the right in the beginning there was that kind of vision of having a club and several students will come. That was not the case. It just evolved over a period of time.
I think one great part of amFOSS is that we tend to strike a balance between our technical and non-technical stuff. So we not only contribute to open source and take part in these contests, but we also focus on other stuff like our communication and our writing skills through, writing articles and creating videos. Right. I think that's a
Exactly. So that's something that
particular.
also I insisted that
Mm-hmm.
I had come up with this semester bucket list. And if you look at that
Yeah.
semester bucket list, it is the idea of the semester bucket list came up with the thinking that what would I do differently if I were to go back to my first year in college, knowing what I know right
Mm-hmm.
now. So you learn
Right.
a lot of things on the way, right? And then if you
Mm-hmm.
even currently, when if you ask your final year students, hey, if you go back to your first year, what are you going to do
Yeah.
differently? So I thought, okay,
Yeah,
knowing what I know right now, what would I do differently if I were to go back to my first year of engineering? So based on that, I created this semester bucket list, for students to try out, because I believe that technical skills are not just the only skills that are needed. There are several other skills that are needed, social skills, communication skills, presentation, several other skills are needed actually. So
Mm-hmm.
so I would like the students to focus on developing several of the other skills also, and not just the technical skills.
yeah,
Right.
definitely. And I think being part of amFOSS, we are obviously encouraged to take part in a lot of competitions, which are obviously a time commitment. But I think like amFOSS provides a community, so we feel less alienated, even though we are like spending a lot of time participating in competitions, which I think is a great thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I've heard that from several students that that community feeling is very strong.
Definitely.
So we
Yeah.
have to, yeah,
Like I remember in my previous schools, I never knew any of the seniors. Like I know anyone like in amFOSS. I haven't been really guided by them as much as I've been guided um, by my seniors in amFOSS. So I think that community aspect where the seniors mentor the juniors is a very fundamental concept that has kind of driven the club all these years, isn't it? Yeah.
right. And along with that, you learn some skills that you need also. How do you mentor? And later on, you're going to go to the industry. And when you go to the industry, also, you are one step ahead, because you know about sending weekly status updates and how do you
Mm-hmm.
mentor. How there'll be,
Exactly.
so whenever there is a large community, there is bound to be a lot of conflicts, and you know how to handle conflict and how to resolve conflict. So there are several skills that you get to learn by being a part of a large community and actively trying to be a part of that community.
Right. So, have you noticed any kind of change from the time amFOSS began to um, now? Has there any been any significant change that you think amFOSS has gone through
One
these
of the
15 years?
unfortunate things is that I am not able to spend so much time now. I wish
Mm-hmm.
because it has grown too big for me to handle. And not only amFOSS, now there is BIOS team is
Right.
also there, and so several students are there. So in 2000 7 to 10 time frame, there were probably 10 students in both amFOSS and BIOS combined together, and we had a much smaller lab.
Oh, okay.
And there was a very small lab. All 10 of us used to be there. I also used to sit in that lab itself. And right now, the club has grown too big. This is not something that I envisioned, but it's good as long as a lot of students are benefiting. I'm really happy that the whole goal is how do we scale this and benefit it. It's not something that I have actually thought much before about how to scale it, but yeah, you need passionate people to scale, right? You can't just have
Right.
anybody and then it's not going to scale like that. There should be people who are passionate about doing things. So yeah, I
So,
haven't. Yeah, go ahead.
go ahead, sir.
No, you are. I feel yes. I am, and also I keep learning a lot of new things. As I keep learning a
Mhm.
lot of new things, we also kind of add these things into the club. We try to do. There are several more things I would like to do, but we will take it up slowly. I feel that students are getting the skills, but the skill alone is not enough. The fundamentally it would be good that people become a better human being. That aspect
Mhm.
is also very very important to me, and as our chancellor, the great humanitarian, and I feel that students also should learn such things. So recently in our trip to Delhi, when you go around, you find there are so many kids. When you go to places, they don't get food to eat, they're suffering a lot. There is so much. How can we use technology to solve such problems? And how do you become a better human being? You cannot just be thinking only about your need and your comfort. We are a part of this larger ecosystem, right? So we have to
Right.
be thinking about such things. So I would like the students also to think in that direction and not just about technology. So we used to do field trips, and we used to visit the orphanage. We used to interact with old age home people and things like that, and go to villages, so with the aim that you get exposed to all these things, and there you may get some better idea. So I can use technology for this purpose.
Mhm.
So that would be something that I would like the students to get into also.
Right. So I think, yeah, that aspect is pretty insightful. I think I hope we can go to these field trips when we come back to college because that really sounds a lot of fun.
Definitely, yeah, it's more fun also. Actually a lot of
Yeah.
fun, rather
Mm,
than it's good. Definitely technology has helped in a lot of ways, but we
yeah.
also need to interact with human beings. It should not be that everybody is only communicating on their phone and Facebook, but you're not really physically meeting with each other. The pandemic has made it worse right now, but
Yeah.
so hopefully once this is all over, we can again restart some of those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you envision for amFOSS in the near future? Like anything you see in the next 5 years or something?
Yeah, so there are lots of opportunities. So as I said, when I talked to our chancellor, she told go and find these competitions. After that I kind of stopped looking for it. There was nothing
Okay.
more. I feel that for a long period of time the club has become stagnant. There's so much of things happening in the technology world. For right now, for example, there is this startup, so much of opportunities in the startup world, and it helps people to become job providers than to be job consumers. So one of the things that right now I want to focus on is seeing how I can get more of the students to become entrepreneurs. So that's something that I would like to focus on. So maybe in the next 5 years there are a lot of opportunities for it. It's just a matter of orienting your thinking process in a different manner. And it's also a matter of what you get exposed to much earlier in your life. So at a first year level itself in college, if we are able to reorient students, hey, think about entrepreneurship. So it will sow some seeds, and we don't know when that will sprout, or what is that going to do to change. So that's something that I would like to focus a little bit more on in the next 4 5 years.
So, do you think this kind of made it easier for people to step into the entrepreneur world? Yeah.
um, I am not an expert in this, but I feel yes, maybe it is easier because a lot of um, regulations are now much more easier. Maybe you can do it online rather than visiting offices. Definitely technology has made such changes, and people may also be exposed to a lot of problems. And
Yeah.
for example, when the pandemic came in, there were a lot of new problems are there, like how do you uh, for example, in your own case, if you want to write an exam, how are you going to ensure that students write the exams fairly? How do you ensure that students are learning, teaching? So you need, these are all a lot of new problems that came up. And definitely, if there are people who can come up with good solutions for all this, then that is definitely there will be a lot of market need for some things like that, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Right.
So I completely agree with what you said about how the club gives us exposure to things like as you were saying, entrepreneurship. Like we have FOSS talks where like we analyze startups and we see why they failed, which isn't like directly related to tech, but like it's still a very useful skill to have to be able to analyze these things and like know about the market and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
FOSS talks really gives us a good insight into
Yeah,
how
so that's
startups
the
fail.
reason why I started that, so to know, because I also would like, other than students doing, so it's not for everyone, right? There should be a set of diverse things for students to do. Maybe some of them want to go and pursue PhD, some of them want to go and do work, some of them might want to do whatever, different, there are different. So as diverse as the students, there should be diverse opportunities also. So I cannot expect that everybody will get into entrepreneurship. So what are some of those exciting companies out there, what are the problems out there, so that you can say that, hey, by the end of your second year, I would like the students to know this is my dream job, and in my dream job, this is my dream role in this particular company. Instead of saying that XYZ is my dream company, I would like to know that, okay, I want to join as this particular role in XYZ. And if not, then maybe I should have another backup. Some kind of thinking like that may help.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you have any kind of advice for people selecting their careers or actually getting into a technological career in their future?
um one of the things I would say is that, as keep learning. I feel that at least the first 5 to 10
Yeah.
years of your career, you should continue to learn and keep moving on. If you feel that you are stuck in something, it doesn't matter where you're working. If you're keeping on learning and having fun, then yeah, continue. Because beyond a certain age, you have more responsibilities. So initially your responsibilities are much lesser, you have much more time. I would say that you should spend that time and energy to ensure that you keep learning a lot of things, but at the same time balance yourself and make sure that you find time for other things, like especially taking care of your health. Because I see a lot of students today, they ignore their health and various other things that are also very important. So like maybe relationships with your parents or your loved ones, that also you should find time for it. And that kind of balance should
Yeah.
be there. So that
Yeah.
is very important.
So on a similar note, if a student could learn like one skill, what would that skill be?
A very difficult question to answer. What is that one skill? Because maybe I would say that people, I cannot really pinpoint and say one skill. I would like more than being technologically you are so good, better be a good human being. Be honest with what you're doing. And I cannot really pinpoint and say there is this one skill. It's just, for me, it is little difficult to answer this one skill. And the skill itself,
Yeah.
are you asking about technical skills or non-technical skills? So there are different areas,
Honestly,
right?
anything. Yeah.
I think like one there's this one concept that you tend to like you tell us in the club, which I've heard from a lot of seniors as well, is this ability to learn how to learn. I think
Right.
you talk about that a lot. Do you mind elaborating to the audience what exactly does that mean and why that's so important?
Yeah, so learning to learn is something that I emphasize on. It is that technology is changing so rapidly. um, so the current careers that most of us are in, um, it requires a lot of these things get it requires us to continuously learn things get outdated so fast. Suppose you are into physics, you become an expert over and over a period of time, because not so many changes happen. Compared to technology industry, there's not much. So mathematics, so you might
Yeah.
have had when you, even in your school, or you might have had excellent teachers, because they teach the same thing over and over again, and they become really really good at it. So but that is not the case in technology, because they just keep changing. I remember that over 5 years I had developed really good skills in writing J2EE enterprise applications. And one fine day, the technology has changed so much that you click a button, whatever I would do in 2 days of hard work, it would do in seconds.
Yeah.
So so like that, we don't know in future what is going to happen. Technology is changing so much that we have learned so many things, and unfortunately, uh, we may be replaceable so fast, right? So learning to
Yeah.
learn is about given some particular problem, how do you solve that. That the emphasis should be on that, not that okay, I see students saying that I know Java, let me do a Java project because Java is hot, or Python is very hot right now and I'm going to do, or AI, I'm going to do some AI project. Rather, I would like students to focus on solving a problem. So there is this particular problem that you are passionate about, and you want to fix. It could be that you went somewhere and there was a lot of queue over there, and maybe you want to avoid the queue. And so you think about that, how do you avoid a queue. Maybe I can develop some Android app for it, or maybe it not even be a technology solution. Could be some other way to solve it. So that
Hmm.
would be a very valuable thing for students to learn, rather than saying, hey, I know Java, now let me see what I can solve with Java, or I know AI, what all can I do with it. Because you want
Right.
to be a problem solver, that is one. And learning to learn is that okay, when you want to solve this problem, you should not be in a position to say that, oh, I don't know this. So how do you learn just in time and only what you need to solve that problem? So that is where learning to learn comes. Because when you want to solve a problem, maybe you came across that you have to learn to build responsive web application, but you do not know how to do it, and that's okay. And you have the confidence that, okay, given some time, I'm going to be able to learn it. So that's
Yeah.
where I emphasize on learning to learn. There is a way to approach some particular thing, and how do you start learning it just enough to solve that particular problem.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that make
I
sense?
think, yeah, absolutely. So I think one of the things that I've kind of learned to do is, initially whenever I used to learn something, I had to kind of go through the entire course because that seemed more comfortable and then approach the project. But now it's more
Yeah, we are
like,
used to that.
yeah, exactly. And then when we now when I approach a problem, it's more like, okay, what does this problem need? And according to that, you learn the required information to solve it.
Right.
So I think that approach is, I think, pretty important, especially like you said, since the technological field is evolving at a extremely high rate. So that kind of skill is pretty important to develop.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, even in like for our tasks to first get into amFOSS, I remember like there were tasks with Go, there were tasks with JavaScript,
Exactly.
and
Half of the stuff
having
I've not
very
even worked with.
limited,
Yeah.
yeah, technical experience, I was like so overwhelmed. How am I going to learn all these languages? And then like I remember the seniors were assuring me like you don't need to learn the whole language. Like you can make use of these resources and just pick up what you need. And that was the first time I'd approached problem solving from that perspective, like not knowing everything, but still figuring out how to solve the problem, which is still I find a very useful skill that I use today.
Right. And also you kind of lose fear of it. That also I
Yeah.
Right.
feel is very
Yeah.
important. Otherwise, you are always afraid, oh, what is all this jargons, that this. So now doesn't matter whatever jargon is thrown at you. It's okay. You know how to, you are confident.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So I was mentioning this mentor mentee system that we have in the club. So Why? So, could you explain why this is so significant? Why do you think this kind of system has actually worked for the club all these years?
Yeah, this is one of the ways that we can actually scale it. Otherwise,
Mhm.
if it is only
Right.
dependent on someone, then that person becomes a bottleneck. And so the way to scale it is that you should have people who are seniors to mentor the juniors because they have gone through this particular process. I don't think it is a perfect way to do it, but this is the current way that we do it, because otherwise we need large number of mentors with so much of experience. For the large part, I would say it has worked, and several students got benefited because of that. The In this process, both the mentors and the mentees benefit. Actually, it's just not that only the mentees are
Right.
benefiting. The mentors also learn how to communicate their ideas better, and how to mentor properly, which are again going to be useful when they join the industry. At some point they may become team leaders or project managers, and they will also have to end up mentoring students. So
Hmm.
this provides a great opportunity for all the students to learn to become good mentors as well.
Right.
And I have seen that several of the students have excellent communication skills. And when I visit companies, they tell me that, hey, your student knows how to teach the subject so well. They have so much of
Hmm.
clarity in the way they are approaching it, and that comes with experience. Because as several of you have taken a lot of sessions for students, and then when they ask doubts, then you understand that, oh, maybe this was not clear, this is, I should have explained it this way. So while you're in the club itself, you are, as a mentor, you get that experience as well.
Right.
So, on a bit of a side note, what is one of your favorite memories about the club?
No one favorite memory, I would say there are lots of memories, but yeah, the initial days, getting to win in the code for freedom, that was very very exciting. Because honestly, even nobody thought that you know s- university students could contribute to such a large code base at that particular point of time. And it was just amazing that we actually my target was actually 108 contributions. We ended up with 105 contributions to various open source projects such as Open Solaris, um, and Glassfish. There's another project called Glassfish, and there were a few other projects, I can't remember their names now. So that was just amazing that we were able to do that, because it was not done before in our campus. Maybe, I mean, I'm not saying it was the first time that in the world it is being done, but it was not done before. And then there were several engineers who said that, wow, you guys are only second year students or third year students, and you're able to do it this particular time. And it really helped students to boost their morale and all that. So that
Hmm.
part I would always remember, as that was also the beginnings of the club, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice.
It's like
Um.
initially you have a lot of inertia, and when you start
Right.
pushing, and if it is in motion, then it kind of moves along. So the pushing is the
Hmm.
the difficult part, right? The initial part where you really keep pushing, and then after some time it's on self-sustaining mode, and then it keeps kind of going. And the kind of effort that needed is lesser compared to the initial effort to bring it up.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a podcast session with Avinash and actually, and he kind of told us a little bit about how those little bit about the experience he had through contributing to Open Solaris and all.
Yeah,
He was, yeah, it was a pretty good memory that he said. So so you're talking about mentors and mentees, right? Is there anyone that you regard as a mentor who has helped you um, through your problems and obstacles? Is there anyone like that?
I have definitely, all of us have several people that we look upon to. For me, my guru and our chancellor, Mata Amrita, and I regard her as my guru. I approach Shamma for any issues, and she gives lot of practical solutions. And for
Yeah.
any kind of problems that I have, she is the most accessible chancellor in the whole world. you know
Mm-hmm.
um, since you are not in the campus, you have not met Amma, but every single student who is there in our campus can go and visit her, or in any campus, and directly interact with her, where it's unheard of in any other university actually. so
Mm-hmm.
so I we all have the freedom to just go up to our chancellor and just get her guidance. So that is something that I always that's that's a source of my strength, I would say.
That's nice. Would we ever get an opportunity to meet Amma when we come to campus?
Definitely, all of you will get an opportunity to meet Amma.
Yeah. That's great.
So I was curious. So how do you manage managing amFOSS and BIOS with your personal work?
Um, well, it's just a matter of commitment. So, right now I feel that, more or less students are running the club, and, it's like a well oiled machine. So things happen like that. But, as I said, initially it was not very difficult. And I mean, it was very difficult initially. And I did spend a lot of time. Most of the, days I would be minimum staying back till 10 p.m. in the lab, or, I'll come back. There are days I came at 6 o'clock in the morning. It was difficult in the beginning, but I feel it was worth it, because this is something that I also wanted to do, to see how to help students to become more industry ready, and become more contributing towards our environment, and towards our country, and things like that. So that was something that has driven me. And when you have something that drives you, then you somehow make time for it, right? I'm sure maybe you all have experienced it yourself.
Yes.
Right.
So
So,
do you have any advice on how we can manage our time? Because
yeah, exactly.
obviously, being an AmFOSS is a huge time commitment, and it can sometimes be difficult to balance academic work and AmFOSS. So, do you have any advice for us?
I think it is something that each of you should find it for yourself. And you should write down what are your pride, because everybody has a different speed of learning, and different way of doing things. So each of you should try and keep trying. As long as you don't stop trying, and you will find that kind of balance will come. So I've seen this with several people, several students, they struggle in the first year, and then after some time, by the time they're in second year, they kind of okay figure it out, or maybe sometimes in the third year. So you just have to find and try out different things, and then see what works for you. Because if you start asking 100 people, you get 100 advices, and
Yeah.
it may or may not work for you, we don't know that. And so you don't have to, then you may think, oh my god, I asked them and they told to try this, it's not working for me. That's fine, it may not work for you. You just try out, and see, and come to that optimal balance, what works out for you.
Right.
But you have to remember what all to prioritize. The For example, I would say that the first priority should be your health. That should be given the number one priority. So without that, then that's the foundation, right? You should be healthy and happy. Without that foundation, then other things will not go on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think health is something that is kind of taken a little bit, kind of taken a backseat in the pandemic, especially. Um, I think more time and effort needs to be invested in looking after our health, considering um,
Yeah, it's a
the toll
human.
that the pandemic has taken. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it's a more human thing that we take for granted whatever we have. So when we have good health, we take it for granted. Relationships with the parents or whatever, we kind of tend to take it for granted, because we yeah. So that we should not be doing. We should not take things for granted, and then until something goes wrong, then we'll start taking care of it. So we should. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm not saying that I am very good at it. I'm just saying that we should all try to do it.
Hmm. So on like a completely different note, um, how did you come up with the idea of InCTF and NCTF Junior? How did that
InCTF,
start?
yeah. So as I said, I had talked to the chancellor, and she asked me to find out these competitions. So one of the other competition that I came across was called this Capture the Flag, and it was totally new to me. I had no clue what it was about. I had no idea about cybersecurity or even open source. So it doesn't matter. I just wanted to check it out. What is this? Because it's an international competition, and I have that confidence that we should just try it. I see several students will say that I may ask them to apply. Hey, there is this program in Israel. Why don't you apply? Israel, no, I am not going to get it. That's the first thing that I hear from so many students. So that should not be, for me, it is not like that. I'm just going to try it. It doesn't matter whether we do it, we don't do it. We have to try. Unless we try, we don't even know. So I have started looking into this competition, and I got a bunch of students to take part in this CTF, and it happened to be so exciting. And the feedback that the students gave me was that we learned more in these 1 week in our about computer networks than what we learned in our whole semester, because you practically do things. You configure this virtual private networks, and you install some software, you do some routing, you do several things. And they found it to be very exciting. And I also then got excited about it and said, this is a really great way for students to learn things.
Yeah.
And we started actively taking part in such competitions. And slowly I understood the importance of cybersecurity, for not only for the country, but also for everything that we do online, now depends on the security right now. So cybersecurity is such an important thing because it enables the current way of life. Actually, we are doing online
Mm-hmm.
shopping, online education. This podcast
Yeah.
itself is online. Everything is online. What if it is not secure? We take that. Sometimes we take that security also for granted. So
Mm-hmm.
I understood, slowly more and more the importance of security. And unfortunately, even today, it is not widely taught in universities. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example,
Yeah.
you all have learned about programming, but you don't know about secure programming. You have no
Mm-hmm.
idea even today that what happens if you write a code in a particular way that it can actually make the whole system to be compromised. So even when I
Right.
was in the industry, my idea was security was just a firewall. That's not my job. There's a firewall, you put that firewall, and that's it. I never knew that I as a developer also has a role in security. So these things
Mm.
when I learned, I thought that there should be a way for more students to learn about security, because especially because it's not in the curriculum. And so that's how I started in CTF, because from a country of 1 billion people, we had only one team taking part in such an important competition. So I wanted to change that. I wanted to see how we can have more students from in our country to take part and get skilled in these important area. So that's how InCTF started. And then there is this Olympiad of hacking called DEFCON, and till today not a single team from India has qualified for it. And one of my goals was we want to get at least one team to even qualify for it, forget winning it, just to qualify for it. And then I went and asked our chancellor again, as I always do when I'm clueless. I asked our chancellor, hey, what do we do to get some team qualified? And then she told me, look, from other countries they start way earlier. And so we have to go more earlier and start earlier if we have to do something like that. So that's how the initiative junior idea came up. Okay, let's go for school students, and let's get them also into this. So then we will see how it works. So that has really helped us to improve our rank. We are still far away from qualifying for the the Olympiad of CTF, but we'll get there one day.
Okay, that's interesting. That so in so so NCTF is, I mean, just for the audience to kind of uh, understand. Do you mind just kind of describing what NCTF actually is for?
All right. So
Yeah.
CTF actually stands for capture the flag, where we write deliberately vulnerable programs. So very rough analogy, if I have to say, is that if you are wanting to learn, I don't know, it's not a very good example, but maybe it will suffice for now. You're building a house, and then if you want to know how to secure it, if you will see that, okay, if somebody wants to rob this house, maybe they will check if somebody is actually staying in it, or are they going on vacation. Maybe they will check if the paper is being dropped and nobody's collecting the paper. Then they would know that, okay, maybe nobody is there. And then if they have to break into the house, they will not see that, that they may not do the front door. Maybe there's a camera in the front door. They may go through the back, and maybe one of those windows are not so secure, and they will go through that. So they'll go through the weakest point. So it's the same thing with any application. An application, somebody who wants to break it will see what is the weakest point of that application and see how do you enter through that. So in this CTF, it's a way for us to write these weaknesses intentionally. We deliberately write these weaknesses into the application so that somebody who doesn't know can learn that, oh my god, if I write code like this, if this this weakness exists in my code, then this is what is going to happen. All this personal information can get stolen, whatever, all these things
Yeah.
can get happen. So CTF is a way for learning it by intentionally writing programs that are vulnerable. And InCTF, so there are several competitions like that happens through, and InCTF is just focused on beginner. And we give, we do a lot of hand holding and try to help students to get into security. So we hope that people who don't know anything about security can get started in their security journey through InCTF.
I think we've exhausted all the questions on our list. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be a guest on our podcast. And it was really interesting to hear from you how the club started and then how it grew to be amFOSS as we know it today. And also, like, how you balance the time between your personal work as well as managing amFOSS and BIOS. And I'm sure I speak for all of the listeners of our podcast when I say that it was truly a pleasure having you, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.